Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for the 32nd video in the Writer's Quote series here on the channel. And today's quote comes to us from a legend in the writer's circle, from someone who is renowned to this day, and that's why this quote itself, I think, holds a little bit of extra weight, a little added value. The quote comes to us from Virginia Woolf, and it reads as such: "It is worth mentioning, for future reference, that the creative power which bubbles so pleasantly in the beginning of a new book quiets down after a time, and one goes on more steadily. Doubts creep in, then one becomes resigned. Determination not to give in and a sense of an impending shape keep one at it more than anything." One more time here. It is worth mentioning, for future reference, that the creative power which bubbles so pleasantly in beginning a new book quiets down after a time, and one goes on more steadily. Doubts creep in, then one becomes resigned. Determination not to give in and the sense of an impending shape keep one at it more than anything. This is from Virginia Woolf. If Virginia Woolf questioned from time to time whether or not she was going to finish her projects, what excuse do you have? So I remember a story that Charlie Murphy told. It might have been on the Joe Rogan podcast. Charlie Murphy, Eddie Murphy's brother. Eddie Murphy was world famous. I mean, Eddie Murphy, for anyone who doesn't, anyone who doesn't realize what Eddie Murphy was stand-up comedy for a few years. I mean, Eddie Murphy was the guy. That was it. That's all stand-up comedy was Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was an entire brand of comedy. And Charlie was a comic as well, not as successful as his brother. And he said he remembered one time he was doing some dive bar and he went out on stage and they booed him off stage. Booed Charlie Murphy off stage. Dive bombed, right? He got home and he was upset. Just distraught. Didn't think he was ever going to do stand-up comedy again. Thought he was done. And Eddie said, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What are you so down about?" He said, "Well, got on stage, was doing my bit, booed me off stage. Bombed. Done. I don't think I'm going back." And Eddie Murphy said, "You son of a bitch. I'm the biggest name in comedy. You know how many times I've been booed off stage? Richard Pryor was booed off stage. George Carlin booed off stage. Who the fuck are you to think that you won't get booed off stage? You think you're better than all of us?" All this, went at his brother that way. And Charlie said that talk really helped him. Virginia Woolf giving us the fact that doubts creep in for Virginia Woolf, giving us that she would become resigned. Virginia Woolf should lead us to the realization, of course, we're going to have doubts. Of course, there are going to be projects which leave us, that we feel resigned from. There are going to be projects which come up and we are very passionate about them at first, and we trail off. Trailing off is not the important part. The project itself is the important part. She gives us here determination not to give in and the sense of an impending shape keep one at it more than anything. Determination not to give in. Looking that project in the face and saying, "You know what? Screw you, guy. We're going to finish it anyway." That's certainly something that I think any writer can level with, right? Something that certainly any writer can identify with. Some place that almost inevitably every writer comes to at one point. But what she says next, and a sense of impending shape, I think that's important. I think that what we're saying there, what we're realizing there, what we're looking at there is sort of not just the craft, but the craftiness. I think that there are probably one of the things about the stock market, for example, April is always the strongest month. We know that. April is the strongest month. December will have the strongest earnings, right? We know that. The companies will have the strongest earnings in December. The stock itself will be the strongest in April. If you're looking to get out of a position, that's probably one of the times you want to really examine it. That's craftiness. This idea of the story taking shape. Sense of an impending shape. Keep one at it. I think what that says to me is, so whenever I'm in the midst of a story, one of the things that happens for me is it doesn't matter where I started the story. It doesn't matter who that character was when I very first put pen to paper. It doesn't matter what the ironic twist I thought I was going for was. At some point, there is a switch that goes on, and I will have a better understanding of that story. When I very first started writing, that switch, that flip, didn't happen until a second or third draft. Now, I am not saying that understanding that flip saves me from the second or third draft, not at all. What I'm saying is those second and third drafts happen in full light of what it is that story is doing. And that is the first time, this quote here, is the first time I have ever seen that part of the process acknowledged. I don't think I've read maybe 10 books on craft, not terribly many, but enough to have seen that moment recognized for sure. I don't think I've ever seen that moment recognized. That moment where you're holding the seed and you can visualize the flower that it will be. If you don't know much about planting and you're holding that seed, if you don't know much about plants, botany, whatever, and you're holding that seed, you might not know what kind of plant it grows into. But if you're crafty, you know where you are, you know what you're looking at, you can hold that seed and see the flower into which it will grow. And I think that's what Virginia Woolf is acknowledging here. It is humbling to see a quote like this from Virginia Woolf. It is worth mentioning for future reference that the creative power which bubbles so pleasantly in beginning a new book quiets down after a time, and one goes on more steadily. You're going to lose that passion for the project. You're going to lose that fire with which you had found that project. You just got to hammer it out. I think that is what is being said here. I think that this was a very important quote in order to, I think sometimes you just have to be reminded, you're not just an idiot. Probably you are. Probably you are an idiot. But everyone, even the Virginia Woolfs of the world, felt like idiots from time to time. Even the Ernest Hemingways of the world felt like idiots from time to time. Even the Bukowskis, even the Emily Dickinsons felt like idiots from time to time because there was something they could not do, some project they could not finish, some piece they felt lost inside. I think that's all I have for this, the 30-second writer's quote here on the channel. This will be in the Writer's Quote playlist here on the channel. If you like this sort of thing, it really helps me out here on the channel if you hit that like button. If you want to keep seeing more of these, be sure to subscribe. Maybe hit the bell button if you want to be notified when they are dropped. That is all I have for this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one.